Today I will review the film Phenomena, a mystery horror film released in 1985. Directed and co-written by the renowned horror film director Dario Argento, who is best known for his work in the 70s and the 80s with films such as Suspiria, Deep Red, and among other films. While in the modern time he does not have the same top-notch finish that he used to back in those days, somewhat. His legacy is top-notch. Phenomena is an interesting piece of work. It revolves around a serial killer trying to murder high school girls in a Swiss boarding, and it would later go on to inspire Clock Tower video game in 1995. This film is also a lead debut of Jennifer Connelly, a child actress who would later go on to star in films that would get cult status later on. I would say the plot is a bit generic and all, but synopsis isn't exactly accurate. So, with that out of the way, let's see how Phenomena holds up today. Film begins on a countryside road where a young girl named Vera Brandt misses her bus. Stranded in the middle of nowhere, she explores in the nearby area, eventually discovering a house, but no one seems to be inside it. She opens up the door to explore as we see something trying to break free from the chain shackles. The film indicates her to be the first victim, and within the span of 4 minutes, she is stabbed from behind and gets stabbed on her hand. Scared from the event, she tries to flee from the assailant as it chases after her. Cornered in some hut, she is brutally killed and decapitated as her headless corpse is dragged by the killer. 8 months have passed, and we are now introduced to Jennifer Corvino, a daughter of a famous American actor who is chaperoned by Frau Bruckner as she is enrolled in Richard Wagner Academy, a boarding school exclusive for young girls. Elsewhere, we are introduced to some other characters, Inspector Rudolph Giger and Professor John McGregor, who lives along with his pet chimpanzee Inca. Here's a spoiler. Both of them are going to die later on in this film. Except for the... You probably guessed which one of them is going to survive. So anyway, Jennifer is also shown to have a fascination with insects. And Professor John McGregor is a bug entomologist. That's kind of an interesting thing, isn't it? Jennifer is later given a room with Sophie, a French girl who is also a fan of Jennifer's father. Both of them develop a friendship as they talk for a while before going to sleep. Later, we see the killer is in the premises of the academy chasing after another victim. Here, Jennifer begins to suffer a series of nightmare or panic as she enters in a sleepwalking state, walking around the premises all the way to the rooftop and the ledges before arriving at the building where the victim is hiding. Shortly, not long after, we see her running to the window where Jennifer is transit watches over her. She is impaled from the back. Jennifer walks back but falls from a weak ledge. She continues to walk all the way to the road where she gets hit by a car. Two boys come out of the car and take her with them. She starts to struggle to free herself, eventually falling into a forest plot as the boys leave the scene. Inga later discovers her and takes her back to the professor, where both of them learn each other's fascination with bugs.
Remind me of another girl. Greta. She used to come here sometimes, help out. Mostly secretarial work. And then one night she never arrived.
The killer got her.
What do you know about that?
Well, you use the past tense.
She changes her clothes and learns about Greta, another victim who was killed prior. The next day, though, Frau and the headmistress take her for an EEG exam due to her unusual activity last night. She is not pleased with the decision or the remarks made by them and the doctor. As she leaves after and tries to contact her family lawyer more superior to get her out of the academy and go back to the America. Other girls begin to tease her for this due to this incident. And while in class, she asks out Sophie to help to look out for her if she tries to sleepwalk again. But Sophie meets her with her boyfriend instead. Her date is only short-lived as the boy leaves her after a few minutes in. She eventually gets killed by the killer as Jennifer once again enters in a sleepwalking state, but she manages to recover in the nick of time. She goes outside, and a firefly is hovering all over her. That firefly leads her to a glove hidden inside the bushes. She takes the item back in the premises, only to scream hard. So eventually, what happens next is everyone begins to doubt her as she's a normal person. She only finds some sort of semblance in the form of Professor John McGregor. Okay, McGregor. Okay, I'm gonna call him McGregor now. So she decides to take the glove to him to see what it's all about, if there any clue about it. It tells about an insect there that is usually found near decaying corpses or something like that. So he then asks her a thing, which I guess he should have asked the police officer instead, but this is a film, who cares? She asked her to take this fly to the exact location where those two victims previously disappeared, Greta and that other girl. So when she does come to the first scene in the film, she finds the house, and before she could find anything though, the caretaker of the house comes here and she runs away from him. The professor gets killed eventually, and the chimpanzee gets mad, tries to go after the killer, but only to be thrown off at some random part of a wood. Meanwhile, Jennifer has escaped from the hostel, the dormitory, whatever it is, and is openly contacting her family lawyer to get her out of there. Frau eventually finds her and takes her to her home, which is where the third quarter and the actual horror scene kind of begins there, but at this point the film is spared out way too much. So what really happens there is simple. Frau turns out to be the mastermind behind all of the killings and everything. And there's another few things learned. So basically, she bolts Jennifer in her house while she deals with the professor who's investigating the case. Jennifer tries to find a way out. She eventually leads to an unknown chamber where the officer is tied up and brutally bruised or something like that. She falls into a pit of maggots and decaying stuff, corpses like that, and Frau appears and she reveals her sadistic side. Naturally, everyone's freaked out. The officer manages to break free and holds her down while Jennifer escapes. As she's escaping the hall, she comes across her son, Frau's son. And yeah, this is where the clock tower references begins to come full circle. The boy is hideously deformed and she runs away from him. The young killer, that is him with a spear, makeshift spear, comes after him, tries to kill her, but Jennifer summons her ultimate MacGuffin power, Bug Attack, Swarm Attack. As she's at her lowest HP, Swarm Power boosted her power, and the bugs attack the child, feasting on the mangling corpse. So she manages to. She's just. It's kind of like the Friday the 13th, Jason with the foreheads and all, but she eventually frees herself. Okay, she goes to the shore. Morris comes there, but Frau decapitates her. She tries to choke her to death, but guess what? The chimpanzee is back and stabs her from the back. Both Jennifer and the chimpanzee embrace, where the actress eventually gets her hand bitten by that crazy animal. Back then Hollywood used to promote animals like that, chimpanzees and all, before, the movement, activism. Too. Anyway, this was my review on Phenomena / Creepers. So, what did I think about it in reality? Yeah, I'm not really impressed with the plot overall because it's sometimes confusing and it drags on a lot of it. Far too often. It only gets the action during its final quarter of the film, which I guess really goes to show you where they spend most of their energy. Other than that, the film is just okay. At least it inspired an underrated horror game series, which I may cover in the future if I'm interested in. But alas, this film did manage to make some few bucks here and there, and it did eventually get released in America. But the problem with this film ultimately lies with its plot, its overall pacing, and slightly to myself, the dialogue was actually passably fine, nothing more, nothing else. Soundtrack is fair enough. I mean, it's weird because this is the first time I'm seeing a Dario Argento film, so who knows? Maybe the next time I review, I may have a change of opinion. But this film was just okay, I guess. The maximum rating I might as well give it at least is 3 out of 5 stars. Other than that, if you're interested in watching it, you might want to skip to the fourth and final quarter at around 1 hour 30 minutes in if you have the original Italian version of this film. If you manage to find a Creepers version, which may have cut a few 20 minutes out of it, then maybe I'll suggest you watch the final quarter part onwards because that's the only exciting thing about this film. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this movie and I'll see you next time. Subscribe for more.